The chairman of the occasion, Major General Ike Nwachukwu, CFR, MNI, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
With your kind permission, Chairman, sir, let's give him a standing ovation as he comes forward.
The author of the book, Hidden Treasures of Niger Delta. Mr. President, former President of Nigeria, represented by my very good friend, Mike Ogiadome, my good friend, Jerry Ghana, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I met the author one of our meetings of the Patriots, and he impressed me with his contributions on that day, and I earmarked him. So those of you who were saying to him, get out and do something, I joined in saying, come in and do something for God's sake. We need in our country a new path to leadership. Anytime I attended any occasion, I hear people talk about leadership and leadership. When they finish, like the pastor did, they just withdraw and sit back and won't step out to join the band that will take us to the promised land. For as long as we're just talking about leadership, and none of you stepping out into that, into becoming leaders of our country, Nigeria will remain the way it is. So the challenge now is to this younger generation. Don't talk to me about leadership. Nigeria needs to come out, step out, and lead. And as we speak, I recall at the 2014 National Conference, we were talking about restructuring Nigeria. And my group believed that the only way our country would move forward is if we returned Nigeria to what it was before the military intervention in 1966, meaning a proper federation where the federation units control their destinies. And at that conference, the Minister of Natural Resources or so, mineral resources, gave us a talk on the minerals in Nigeria. And it was so clear to us on that day that the richest part of Nigeria isn't the Niger Delta in terms of minerals. In fact, it is Nasarawa State. So if that's the case, and every other state in Nigeria, like my former presidential candidate said here, every part of Nigeria has enough resources to thrive. Therefore, we all can be as rich as Lagos State, or Kano State, or Akwa Ibom State. But within your own state, with what resources you have, you manage yourselves, and the quality of life in your place will just be as good as those in Lagos, or Kano, or Akwa Ibom State. Therefore, Nigerians, let's not be afraid to restructure. Let's not be afraid to restructure. Time and again, I say, for as long as we run the present 1999 Constitution, Nigeria will be held hostage. Development will not thrive as it ought to, because our people are not being allowed the freedom to develop at their own pace. Therefore, what you've just written, your book, underscores the point that it's not only oil, there are other resources, and they are bound in our country. So why wouldn't we all join hands and plead with the leadership of our country, the National Assembly, and so on, to allow a constitutional conference in which the peoples of Nigeria will jointly produce a constitution in which they can live with and thrive in. Some of you would say, well, aren't you a military officer? Yes, I am. What we did in our time, whatever policies or decrees we belted out, we did believing they were in the best interest of Nigeria. Some of them had been so. Some had not been so. One of which is this 1999 Constitution. Change the thing. Let us have a true federation. Let the states control their resources. Let the people use what they have and pay dues and taxes to the federal government. And we will have a better, stronger, more thriving country. Now, on the question of security in our country. Anytime I read or hear news that our soldiers have been killed and our children are being kidnapped and so on and so forth, I want to tell you, it's not because the Nigerian army or Nigerian soldiers are cowards, no. We showed how courageous we are in the Second World War. We did in Liberia. We did with our own country here. We retrieved Nigeria from breaking up between 66 and 1970. We were in Liberia. We were in Sierra Leone. We were in Kenya. We were in the Congo, in Madoslis, and so on. We were in Tanzania. We were in Mozambique. Nigerian troops, Nigerian people. And we saved those areas. We can save our country. Support these men, for God, and women. Give them the resources. Give them the intelligence. And they would take aside all this banditry and all this terrorism in no time. I speak like this passionately because that's my life. I was a regular, combatant, commissioned officer of this army. And I led Nigerian officers and men in difficult times. And I know that they are not cowards. They can deal with this thing. They can deal with this thing. So please support them to do so. Give them permission. Give them the resources. And they will put to bed terrorism and insurgency in our country. Lastly, the author. The author, like I said, I met at one of our meetings of the Patriots. You're a man of vision. You're a man of style. You're a man of initiatives. You couldn't be all of those without your wife. I'm sure you know that. Between the two of you, at some point, discuss and see how you can come out in the next dispensation, at least begin from your state, to show that you can take that state over and take the state to much, much higher heights. And then people can then queue behind you to do the same in other places. Somebody must begin this crusade to salvage our country. And I believe you and those of your generation can salvage Nigeria. No other country can save us except ourselves. The President Trump could well be doing what he's doing to help us, to save our country, but he can save Nigeria. But we Nigerians must save our country, with their support, of course. And God bless Nigeria.